Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaos. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again in another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper, Michael, and I have a special episode for you tonight. We are spotlighting one Jack Doyle, who has, after the events of Derbyshire, has decided that he's going to do a little investigating on his own. So, Mr. Doyle, what is top of mind?
I will be heading to the British Museum. I think that's a good place to start looking for maybe some information about the Carlisle expedition.
Okay. So the British Museum isn't far terribly from where you guys are staying in London. So it's a quick bus ride, or it's a quick walk, really, through a overcast and rainy skies to get down to the museum. The museum is a beautiful, wide building, which sports, wonderful columns and vaulted ceilings. So when you get to the museum, what's your aim when you get there? It is pretty wide ranging. There's a lot of different cultures represented here.
I guess I'm going to start heading over to the Egyptian wing.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. The Egyptian wing is a prized wing of the museum. You pass through the doors, go up the stairs a few flights, and then you take a left and walk down a long hallway. It's not as busy as you thought it would be during the day, but there does seem to be a few people around. The Egyptian wing is dominated by several different larger pieces from the Nile area. And then, of course, there's pottery and different forms of examples of their artwork, whether it be clothing or whether it be stonework. There's obviously a fair amount of hieroglyphics on display.
First, I kind of want to look around. Obviously, I don't know much about Egypt, or Jack doesn't know much about Egypt.
Sure.
So it would be nice to familiarize myself.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could easily spend more than a day here in the Egyptian section, depending upon the number of hours that you wanted to utilize here. You could get a fair amount of education just by looking at dates and understanding the different eras of Egypt. They basically have several different periods. There's an early dynastic period, and then there's stuff earlier than that, of course, but there's time in the Old Kingdom, right? So that would be, as you line things up, you would have names like Senefru and some of the other more historical names that begin to come to mind. But really, the ones that they seem to key in on here a lot here are Middle Kingdom, and then in the Second Intermediate period. So you get quite a bit of what you would see as later empire.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So this is probably in a range from anywhere from 2000 BC to maybe 1500. There is a fair amount of New Kingdom stuff here as well. You do have Ramses I, Ramses II. You see a lot of Ramses, Tutankhamun, obviously, and others.
After a little while, I want to see if I can maybe approach like a docent or maybe somebody who might have some idea, like somebody not in charge so much, but obviously works here. And
yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of people around. You actually spy an older gentleman in a tweed suit. He has brown hair that's relatively close to his close cut, and there's a shock of gray in it. He's a rather distinguished looking gentleman overall. Can I help you?
Yes, I was wondering if there was somebody I could speak to about, well, like about Egypt in particular.
Oh, well, this would be the place for that, yes. I'm happy to try to answer any questions you might have. I'm Professor Fisher.
Oh, excellent. I represent a group of people who are planning on traveling to Egypt and slightly beyond. I don't know if you're familiar with the Carlisle expedition.
He seems to tap his chin for a moment. Yes, I suppose a few years ago, yes. If memory serves correctly, rather ghastly end.
Yeah, yes. And I know they had stopped in here and had talked to Penhew, that you might know.
Sarabri, yes, of course.
Yes.
A titan in the city here.
And I believe they took him with him. But so we're just following their footsteps, trying to piece together what they were looking for and what they may have found. Just wondering if you would have any information that might shed some light.
I confess I don't know exactly what the expedition was looking for in specific. Do you know what they were looking for?
Some of the notes that we have acquired reference a Nyarlathotep.
He kind of screws up his face for a moment. I don't believe I know that. Nyarlathotep. Tell you what, why don't you come with me?
Okay.
We'll go down to the museum library. Perhaps there's a book down there on it. You guys head down a couple of flights of stairs back towards the middle area, actually the entrance of the museum itself. And there's a very large circular area in the center of, just outside the Queen's Courtyard, inside the Queen's Courtyard there, where there's a library. And it's a circular library, so it's a big circle, and then on all of the walls as you walk in are just stacks and stacks of books, all the way up to a very beautiful white and blue ceiling, which has a nice skylight in it. It's fantastic in here.
Nice.
He walks you down the path and then to the right, and then you can kind of curve around until you get about 3/4 of the way towards the next aisle area. He scans a few of the books. Well, the root of the word, though, Hotep, is one I know fairly well.
Please tell me more.
Well, it means to be at peace. The word might also mean offering. It's ritually presented to a deity or a dead person. And so the first part of it I'm not so sure of, but Hotep is a term roughly translated then to mean peace.
Interesting.
He pulls out a couple of thicker tomes, these big leather-bound books that come off the shelf. You can tell that the racks of books here, some of them have these long wooden slats across them, as if to block people from being able to get to them. And he just, with his key, simply unlocks it and brings it down. He takes out a couple of books on some of the different eras. He kind of thumbs through, and after turning more than a handful of pages, he looks back up and shakes his head. I've not heard of this. You're sure that's the name?
Well, that's what it was referenced several times, and it almost seemed like they were referencing a godlike figure that they were in search of.
Well, there are many pharaohs of the ancient kingdoms. I mean, pharaohs went on for years, and if you are aware at all of Egyptian belief systems, the pharaoh was akin to a god on earth. Perhaps they're speaking of a pharaoh?
Yeah, a little bit more terrestrial than...
It's merely conjecture, of course, but perhaps they're speaking of... Now, The interesting part about that could be, it could be that it's a ruler we've not heard of yet. There are many darker ages in Egypt's history where writings are difficult to find.
I wonder where they would have heard of this ruler.
Unfortunately, I cannot say that I am as much of an Egyptologist as Sir Aubrey was. A man was a revolutionary of his time. We're unfortunate to not have him around anymore.
A tragic loss.
Oh, yes. Although, he is not the only person who is well versed in the methods of Egypt.
Indeed.
There are other places. So there is a museum not far from here, maybe a few blocks north, called the Petrie Museum of Egyptian Archaeology.
Okay.
You may check there. Perhaps they would have something a little more specific. The British Museum, of course, we've done what we can to collect as many artifacts from Egypt as possible with everything that's gone on there in the recent years.
Right, yes, of course.
Petrie's collection is some 80,000 items.
Oh, well, they'd definitely be a type of place to go, I would say.
They're part of the University College of London. Closed to non-academics, if you understand my meaning, but I would say that the curators there are likely to at least speak to you. I don't know if they'll allow you to utilize the facility, but they're more than willing to open a discussion.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. Thank you so much for your help.
You're welcome.
One final thing. I know you're obviously more of Egyptologists than general Africa. Have you ever heard of a place called Kikuku?
Kikuku. He looks back down at the table with the books on him and begins leafing through them. Yes, yes, right here. It's not an Egyptian specific, but it is African in origin. It seems the name comes from someplace near Kenya.
Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll let you get back to your work.
Oh, well, we're happy to help anytime we can.
And then I will head out.
Yeah, I mean, heading up the road, if you just head north a few blocks, you're going to hit the University of London. So it's not that far at all.
Right.
This building is a little bit different. The Petrie Museum is almost tucked away on a back street. It's as if the university hides it or wraps around this structure. And so it actually takes you a couple of minutes to kind of douse where specifically the entrance is. But eventually you find the door to it. It's a very simple door. It's not the grandiose style that you were expecting from a museum. It's definitely something that is a few steps down in its presentation than the British Museum is. But the door opens all the same.
All right. I will go on in.
The foyer here is what you would imagine many shops are. Small footpath area, a couple of open archways, one that leads to very obvious antiquities that are being kept. There's a center area for counter sales and assistance. And you see that there's a woman behind the desk. Oh, good day. She greets you.
Good day. I am representing a group of people who will be traveling to Egypt, and we're interested in doing some discovery before we head out.
Discovery? All right. Well, I'm Hilda. She steps around the desk and...
Pleasure to meet you.
Greets you. Yes, would you come this way? She gestures towards the open doorway. The Petrie Museum has been around for several years now. Perhaps you could be a little bit more specific?
A few years ago, an expedition left for Egypt, and they were looking for something in particular. And so I thought maybe we'd start with that, see if we can find out anything about it.
All right, then. Do you know what dynastic era you're looking for?
Not exactly. We have a name.
All right.
Nyarlathotep. It was either a pharaoh or a god or something of the order. We can't quite pin it down.
Why don't you give me a spot hidden roll?
Hard success, 32 under 92.
She very, ever so slightly, she flinches when you say the name Nyarlathotep. It's careful. It's guarded. She maybe has trained herself to not react, but your, detective senses are a little too sharp for her to get past.
Mm-hmm.
That's a strange name. Perhaps we could start over here. She walks towards a couple of the sections. The Middle Kingdom is filled with several Hoteps.
Okay, that would probably be a good place to start.
Mentuhotep here. Subhotep IV. She points to a couple of other things.
Okay.
Where did you hear the name again?
Some of the notes that were left behind from the other expedition.
Notes, you say. Do you have them?
Not with me, no. Mike, I'm going to make certain that she is not behind me at any time.
Okay. She has not done anything so far in the minutes that you've been here that would appear threatening at all.
I don't know, but I've become paranoid the last few months, and
I can't imagine why.
Right.
And you're certain that that's the name that was used?
Oh, very certain, yes.
And I'm sorry, your name?
Doyle. Jack Doyle.
It's good to meet you, Mr. Doyle. She continues, and you see that the route that she's taking you is leading deeper into the shop. It's also going further and further back in dynastic periods. So she gets to the first intermediate period. So this is roughly probably late 2100 BC, all the way back to just before 2000 BC. You're seeing some very, very simple pottery. They have quite a few pieces here that are just phenomenal. They have a few pieces of textile and woven dresses and baskets that just in the pieces that you saw at the British Museum, these are in much better care and keep. The level of detail in these pieces is something more than you saw at the museum.
I must say you have quite a collection here. Most impressive. It was far in excess of the museum, of the British Museum.
She gives you a smile. We appreciate that. It's something of a point of pride for our collection here. This is all started by Amelia Edwards. She kind of gestures around. Are you familiar with her?
No, not really. No.
She was a Victorian writer, a traveling one. And we have about 1,000 objects here that are from her private collection. She donated them before her death. And her estate and will is what sustains the museum to this day. She filmed and cataloged much of these with Petrie's help in order to make a teaching collection. So her plan was to create a collection that lasted after she was gone. I remember reading a paper before I came to work here that she'd said that she wasn't an Egyptologist, she wasn't an archaeologist, but she wanted her estate money to go somewhere where she could have studied if she was that age at that time. She was very concerned about knowledge being collected at the top for the chosen few. And she's done a wonder here.
Obviously, yes. It's worked out perfectly well.
There's nothing very spectacular about the pieces that she left, except maybe one. She steps towards a cabinet that you see, glass cabinet, so you can see what's in it. You see that there are a lot of what look like busts of pharaohs. And there's one in here that is almost mother of pearl inlaid or opalescent in color. It's very striking. And she opens the cabinet door and she takes it out. She very careful hands, and she turns it around so that you can see the facing of it. This is a item from the tomb of Sobekneferu. It was used to make sure that she would receive offerings and power after her death. It was found in her tomb. As the first woman to rule Egypt as a pharaoh, it's unique.
It's also beautiful.
It is very beautiful. That said, she turns it back around and places it back in the cabinet. I don't think we have anything on the floor here pertaining to Nyarlathotep.
That's a shame.
Why don't you... I suppose give me a spot hidden roll, and you'll need a hard success.
No, that's not a hard success.
You could push the roll if you wanted to, but you'd have to tell me how you were pushing it.
Okay, I'm going to push a roll, and I'm like, and you're actually certain you haven't heard of that name, or because you seem to, it almost seemed like you had earlier.
Okay, go ahead and roll.
Nope.
You have luck you could spend to make that a hard success.
What is that? 7 I need, or 6?
All right, so that's a 45.
Yeah.
So that's a hard success. She looks at you, and she said, "No, Mr. Doyle, I don't have anything here on the floor about Nyarlathotep."
Not on the floor, huh? Would there be something somewhere else?
How much time do you have?
I have time.
You have time?
Yeah.
Good. She turns and walks back towards the front of the museum. She goes directly to the front door. She flips the sign closed and locks the door. Come with me.
I'll go with her.
She walks you through the museum portion here until you get to what looks like a staff door. She opens it and then turns on the light. You can see that the back room here is filled with all sorts of pieces that are in preparation. Some of them are in boxes, and some of them are in tables, or some of them are on tables waiting to be prepared, and others are waiting to be cataloged. There's no one else back here. Back to the far left, you see that there's an office with a light on. You see that there's an older gentleman here working at the desk. He's probably 15 or 20 feet away. When he hears Hilda's heels hit the concrete floor, he looks over and sees the both of you. He stands up. "Hilda, what's going on?" "Peter." She waves him over. He steps out. You see a man probably in his mid-40s. He has blondish flowing hair, still business cut. He's in a work shirt with vest on, slacks. He looks more collegiate than he looks upper crust, if that gives you any idea.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
He comes out. What's going on?" "Hi." He extends his hand.
Oh. Peter, is it?
Yes. Peter Fenchurch.
Jack Doyle.
"Good to meet you, Mr. Doyle. Hilda, what's going on?" She turns to him and says, "Peter, we need to talk. Mr. Doyle here has a problem." Peter looks absolutely puzzled. What do you, I'm sorry, what kind of problem, sir? What seems to be the issue? And she says, "He's looking for information on Nyarlathotep." You see Peter kind of straighten his back a little bit. It's a fairly rare request. All right. I'll take it from here. He turns and extends his hand towards his office. "I interest you in a drink."
No, absolutely.
"I think you're going to need one."
Oh.
The two of you walk to his relatively spacious office. It's probably 10 by 15. There are bookshelves and baubles from mostly Egypt, but you see some other places in and around Africa as well. He has a couple of masks in here. He has some pretty amazing statuary pieces as well. There's a small shelf with a few bottles of what appear to be varied shades of brown liquor, and he pours a glass. Single malt, okay?
Oh, absolutely.
He pours you a glass and sits down at the desk and gestures to one of the leather chairs that's opposite the desk.
I must say that international travel has allowed me to enjoy the finer alcohols again.
Well, with what's going on in the U.S. and all the craziness there, I can only imagine we're a good respite for your needs.
Indeed, it's a shame.
Well, every young country goes through growing pains. We had them here, and you're having them there now, so...
So you said I need a drink, huh?
We don't get too many inquiries about Nyarlathotep, you understand.
I'm not surprised.
The name isn't printed. It's not specifically anywhere within the realm of understood or accepted knowledge on Egypt. But that does not mean that Nyarlathotep does not exist. You understand.
Mm-hmm.
So where did you come to it from?
Are you aware of the Carlisle expedition? I assume you are.
Fairly, yes. Went off a few years ago. Unfortunately, some American playboy went and got one of the most foremost Egyptologists in all of London killed.
Well, we believe that there was more to it than that.
Really?
Yes. We were working with somebody who was looking into that expedition, and he unfortunately himself met an untimely end, and we're following through. It seems like this individual was searching.
Wait. African man? Dark-skinned man from the U.S.?
Yes. Jackson. Elias.
Jackson Elias.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I saw him here back a few months ago. He came in.
Unfortunately, he's passed on.
What happened?
Murdered by African cultists.
Peter looks a little worried.
In New York.
Really? Well, that's terrible. You're sure?
Absolutely. Not only did we see the individuals responsible, we, through a series of events, took care of the problem, as it were.
He raises his eyebrows. Took care of the problem. That seems rather sinister.
Well, it is final, that's for certain. But that's ancient history. Mr. Carlisle was looking in particular for this Nyarlathotep.
Any idea why?
That's where it gets strange. He seems to be following some dreams he had.
All right. Any idea what kind of dreams?
Something about transforming into a god or something, transforming into this or following this Nyarlathotep. He was also under the tutelage of an African princess or priestess.
All right.
May have had something to do with it. I don't know.
Now, I know a bit about the expedition that they went to Egypt. They did a few digs there, and then I guess they got tired and they went south to Kenya, and that's when all sorts of terrible things happened.
I'm not so certain that's how exactly it happened. This priestess or princess seems to have come from a place called Kikuku, which seems to be near Kenya.
Yes, I've heard it mentioned before. I'm not truly sure it exists, though. I mean, she wouldn't be the first, or they wouldn't be the first, for that matter, to create their own origin.
No, certainly. But it just seems unusual that they would just up and leave their dig to head to the exact same area that she claimed to have been from.
Well, that's likely true, I would imagine. If memory serves correctly, they left London, I think it was late April that year in 1919. It was some fanfare, if memory serves correctly, too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they weren't here but 2 weeks before they left to to go.
So, and some of the other interesting things we've seen seems like this priestess knew Aubrey Penhew and put them in touch with Carlisle, or vice versa.
No, Sir Aubrey was, he was a titan in the field, although he didn't really get along very well with Petrie here. You do know of the museum's benefactor, yes?
Yes. Hilda was talking about her.
Amelia's dedications and her gifts to the museum is what helped kickstart it, but Hilda's husband is the one who does most of the heavy lifting these days, what with Amelia having passed.
Right, of course.
Although he's not in Egypt at the moment, memory serves correctly, he's in Palestine. Petrie and Sir Aubrey did not see eye to eye on many events. There were a couple of situations where they had some rather spirited arguments about Egyptology.
So they're at odds.
Well, I don't know about odds. They are, I should say they were. They had a differing of opinion, which is not uncommon in the educated world. Petrie is a very well-read and well-experienced professor, and Sir Aubrey was just the same. They simply had different experiences, and they chose to butt heads when they could have been quite the powerhouse together if they wanted to, but they bumped up against each other.
Well, it's I've noticed that people who are at the top of their fields tend to like to protect their own domain.
Yes, he nods. I think I know exactly what you mean, Mr. Doyle. They like to make sure that they have all the green grass they need to properly feel secure.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of mumbling and chatting about how it's lonely at the top. So, I wish I could help you more. I've heard the name. I understand that it is potentially one that's bound to a ruler of Egypt not known. But I very much worry that some of these investigations, some of this information is potentially dangerous or damaging, if you understand.
Oh, you have no idea how much I understand.
I may just. We don't like to talk about it with outsiders, but there are things that have happened here in London that we have been made somewhat aware of. There was very recently a body found at the British Museum in the library.
Mike, is that the murder that they were talking that we've?
It's not part of the murders in Soho that you know of. You've not heard about any body found at the British Museum. That's not been in the papers at all.
A body at the museum, huh?
Yes. Evidently, it was rather mangled. It was.
Not just your average murder.
No, there are crimes here, of course, in London. Every big city has them. There's crimes of passion. If you're a man who's around you, I'm sure you're aware of those things.
Oh, yes.
There are crimes that are committed where foul things happen. This was something entirely different. The body was found in a horrid state.
Who was the victim?
Identification was impossible to make. It seems the skin simply sloughed off of him.
Oh my God, what could do that?
Would you like my honest opinion?
Yes.
He takes a drink. Incantations? Spell work?
Maybe a victim of a ritual?
Most certainly. Now, it's my understanding that the museum covered everything up quickly, that there were only a few people in the room when it happened, or when it was found. But from what I understand, they aren't speaking about it to anyone. We only found out of it because the information came our way from one of the librarians there. Now, I'm not saying it has anything to do specifically with what you're looking into, but there have been a string of murders recently in the Soho area.
Yes, I know about those. We were actually going to look into those when we had time.
These Egyptian murders, as they're calling them. But as far as Nyarlathotep is concerned, I believe it to be a being of inscrutable power. Perhaps at once a pharaoh that walked among man, or perhaps simply another deity that the Egyptians worshipped in some dark period of its history. But either way, the name itself has some power. And so I would be extremely careful where you mention it.
Wise advice. There is some fear amongst us that somebody is trying to awaken this being.
Awaken?
Yes.
Good Lord, what for?
People do all kinds of things for power. So we're trying to retrace the steps of the expedition and maybe find a lead that could help us shut down whatever is happening.
So do you think that this is what Carlyle was after? He went to Egypt to try to find a way to wake this thing up?
Yes, I believe that he thinks that he was destined to either join this being or subsume it or something. He was going to become a god, and this priestess was helping him.
What do you believe then about the Kenyan rumor that they were all murdered?
I don't know what to think. Either they were murdered, due to who did it, I don't know. Maybe some supernatural occultists, protectors, I don't know. Or it was done to cover up their tracks.
I remember hearing and reading the stories of his sister, Erica, coming through London and eventually going to Cairo.
Yes, we spoke with his sister.
She seemed like a very nice woman, but quite a bit colder than I was expecting.
Well, she's had a hard and tragic life.
Yes, I'm sure it has done that to many. So, what principally then are you investigating in London specifically? Just his path? You know that he went to Egypt.
Right. But we thought maybe we could find some information that he might have uncovered here or something else that might have happened. We're following his steps all the way.
Well, I do know that he got in and around some of the social clubs here too. He was here for 2 weeks, but if memory serves correctly, I heard in some of the academic circles here at the college that the rest of the expedition did twice as much of the ground game work than Roger did. He spent most of his time in clubs, drinking and enjoying his what is it? What is the expression of his oats? Yes.
Yeah. I have no doubt that that's true.
I wouldn't put it past him to have maybe chatted up some of the people around in some of the clubs as well.
Maybe we'll see what we can dig up from there.
And I wish I could be of more assistance to you, Mr. Doyle. I just, other than having heard the words and know a bit about this Nyarlathotep, outside of that, my knowledge is limited.
Of course. Well, any little bit will help. You never know when something will become useful. It's a puzzle.
There is a passage here I have. He takes a very small leather book out. You see it's stuffed with a ton of writings. It's not so much a bound book as it's like a journal that's got a bunch of loose papers in it.
Mm-hmm.
I only have one passage here that pertains to Nyarlathotep, but you might serve useful. To Nyarlathotep, mighty messenger, must all things be told, and he shall put on the semblance of man the waxen mask and the robes that hide, and come down from the world of 7 suns to mock. And then he looks up at you. And that's all I have. Whatever this messenger is, this Nyarlathotep, whomever they are, I don't know if it's a message the world wants to receive.
I have a feeling it would not be. Do you mind if I copy that down?
Of course.
Oh. I write it down in my notebook. So, Professor, if we do find anything out, would you like me to let you know?
Well, that is a double-edged sword then. I mean,
knowledge always is.
If you tell me about it, then I know about it. And if I know about it, then it runs the risk of there being some potential blowback on me. I suppose if you wouldn't be so kind as to keep me in the loop, as I am the sort of person who would prefer to know the danger is out there rather than to stick my head in the sand, proverbially.
Of course.
What do you have left to investigate here?
We are looking into these murders. This is something we just tend to do.
I assume that you've been to the Penhue Foundation already?
A couple members of our team are going to the Penhue Foundation certainly soon. I don't know what they're up to today, but...
I would say that Sir Aubrey's understudy is a highly intelligent man. I assume you'll speak with Edward Gavigan.
I'll make certain that if they have not already, they do.
He's shrewd, that's for sure. Some of the pieces here in Petrie's collection he's desperate for, but we don't sell, of course.
Of course not.
All right, then. He stands up.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. He reaches out and shakes your hand. Good luck.
I'm going to need it.
So, beyond the Petrie Museum, you round the day out, probably getting something to eat. Mm-hmm. Any other specific spots Jack wants to go to?
I'm feeling an itch. I'm going to look for a shop where I could find maybe some statuary, religious, or...
Well, I can't even imagine why.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm doing this, but
well, it's pretty clear to you that these statue pieces are critical to having a grounded connection when you're looking for or investigating these types of things. And so you do eventually find, well, I mean, when you walk out of Peter's office and back into the museum itself, you find a wide array of statuary. In fact, makes you a little itchy because you suddenly realize that there are tons of little statuary pieces all over the place.
I want to take one, but I know I shouldn't. So
you do.
I will go and acquire them legitimately.
The thing about that is, though, I want you to make a power roll. When you've got that specific type of urge, that mania, man, it is hard to resist.
No, that's a failure. I don't think I've ever made a power roll.
That does not portend well.
No.
Okay. So you realize something very quickly, and that is you have a need you need to sate. And this is more animal brain Jack than it is cogent Jack. And so you are going to pilfer one of these pieces.
Something small.
You need something. Oh, yeah. So I think that it's probably a good idea for you to make a sleight of hand roll on your way out.
Well, I mean, there's nobody else back here.
Right.
Oh, I'm gonna spend some luck.
Are you gonna spend some? It's 59 out of 50 right now, so you're just gonna spend some luck there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, spend 9 points of luck. There it goes off into the ether.
Mm-hmm.
You spend a little luck, and you quickly get your hand on what appears to be the bust of the small bust of what you believe is a pharaoh. Ooh. Sitting on a chair. It's probably 4 inches or so high by maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches wide. Detailed carving. It's perfect.
Yes, I feel better now.
And you've got to have it.
So much better.
And then you wave goodbye to Hilda as you see her at the front desk.
I think I have everything I need now. Yes, I have everything I need now.
Wonderful. Do see us again.
Absolutely.
Feel a quick jolt of adrenaline as you hustle out the door.
Right now I'm a kleptomaniac.
That's not the specific mania, but it's one of them.
I know.
There's time. We'll give you that one too. So the light rain still blankets London, It's probably, say, 3, 4 o'clock at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll probably start heading back to the hotel.
Okay. You head back towards the hotel.
I have clues and information to share with the rest.
You do. Definitely do. You see a paper. Must be this morning's paper.
Well, I'll pick it up.
And it's sitting there on the... and it's a Daily Mail. And on the front of the Daily Mail, it says, Northbrook, heir in doubt. And the story underneath of it seems to suggest that there is a problem with the Northbrook earldom, and that someone has come forward. So the paper says that there is a gentleman has come forward. His name is Alexander Fitzgeorge, and he is claiming that the former Earl of Northbrook, one George Fitzroy, is his biological father, and that the current Earl of Northbrook, which appears printed here as Raymond Fitzroy, is his younger brother, and he has asked the peerage and the Lords of Parliament to recognize his claim, which seems to have thrown the social pages into a complete tizzy.
Oh, I bet.
It's a fairly long article. You're not sure what this means, but it catches your eye.
I mean, it's like being in the United States. Anytime it's all the same stuff. Somebody will come up with something, and there'll be some social scandal.
Right.
And everybody wants to talk about it.
It says here that this Alexander Fitzgeorge is preparing to present the legal documents which show this to be true at some point to the peerage.
To keep an eye on this story, it's interesting. Start following it like the soaps.
Yeah, you head back to the hotel. It's not too terribly far from where you're going, I should say, not too terribly far from where you're at. And you head into the lobby. You can see that the dining area, not just too far from where you head in, seems to be setting up for dinner. The doorman greets you, as does the gentleman behind the desk. Mr. Doyle, I have a cable here for you.
Oh.
He goes to the box and the messages and puts an envelope on the desk.
Thank you.
There you are, sir.
Thank you very much. Is there somewhere I could get a postcard or?
Oh, of course. There's a few row shops there, just out and to the right. You should be able to get it.
Thank you very much. I decided I'm going to start sending postcards back to my family from my various stops.
It's an excellent idea. Inside the envelope, when you look at it, it's a telegram, international telegram from Carlton Ramsey.
Yeah. What does Carlton have to say?
And it says, Jack, stop. Don't forget receipts. Stop. Probably not a bad idea.
I have to make sure I start getting receipts.
What receipts? Who wants receipts? What? No. I don't remember. I didn't say anything about receipts. Yeah, you pop around the shop when you get a chance and can easily pick up a few postcards. But
because it's almost dinner time, I'm sure who's ever out will be back soon, and we can sit down and chat and compare notes.
You head back to the room and you sit down in one of the luxuriously comfortable chairs, and something kind of bites into your side, your right side, and you pull out a small statuary piece.
Oh, yes. I'll put it with my other statuary piece.
It has several different hieroglyphics on the back of it. And you can see that the face of it looks much like a pharaoh. You see the traditional Egyptian pharaoh's headpiece. But you see that at the end of it, you can see the rise of the bosom, so it's definitely female. But you see a couple of things that are very striking about it. One, the front, the nose, and the mouth have been sheared off.
It's old. Maybe it broke.
as you look it over with your eyes and examine it, it appears like this stone is fairly hard, and it looks like this was hacked off.
I know what that means, but Jack probably doesn't.
Right. But now you have something fun to share with the others.
Yes. Wunderbar.
We will pick it up with you back at the hotel. This has been the spotlight of Jack Doyle. It's nice to have him in just by himself. Good night, everybody.
Good night.